1922. An archaeologist opens a tomb sealed for 3,300 years. Inside the coffin, the body is still intact. The skin still soft. The hair still black, as if he had only slept one night. Above your head, the Great Pyramid of Giza rises. 2.3 million massive stones, built 4,600 years ago, without cranes, without iron, without the wheel. They ruled the world as living gods for 3,000 years, and then vanished completely. Tonight, we open a burial that was never meant to be opened. The Nile River was no ordinary river. It was the lifeline, the only one, in the middle of the largest desert on Earth. 80,000 years ago, the Sahara was still green. Vast lakes, sprawling savannas, rhinos and elephants roaming freely. Then the climate shifted. The rain stopped falling, and in just a few thousand years, everything evaporated. Early humans had only two choices: die in the sand or walk, following migrating birds until a thin green line appeared on the horizon. The Nile. 6,600 kilometers long, flooding every year without fail, carrying black silt richer than modern fertilizer. No plows, no complex irrigation. Just scatter the seeds, wait for the waters to recede, and harvest abundance. Here, the first civilization was born. 13,000 years ago, they were already gathering wild wheat with stone sickles. By 4000 BC, small villages along the Nile began forming hierarchies. Cities like Hierakonpolis, Nakata, and Abydos grew rapidly. Elite tombs filled with gold and copper, while the graves of ordinary people held only woven mats. The Scorpion kings, first and second, already wore the white crown of Upper Egypt, the symbol of war and power. Then came a name that changed everything. Around 3100 BCE, a king from Upper Egypt named Narmer, later known as Menes, achieved something no human had ever done. He defeated Lower Egypt, uniting two lands that had been enemies for thousands of years. On the Narmer palette, he is shown wearing the double crown, red and white, raising a mace above a defeated enemy. He established the first capital at Memphis, standing between both kingdoms. From that day, for the next 3,000 years, there was only one title for the supreme ruler of this land. Not king, not emperor, but Pharaoh, the great house, the place where the gods lived on earth. According to archaeological records, the Narmer palette was discovered in 1898 at Hierakonpolis and is now preserved in the Cairo Museum. The unification around 3100 BCE is confirmed by Manetho, a 3rd century BC historian, and by modern excavations at Abydos, published in Antiquity, Volume 87, 2013. These findings confirm what ancient Egyptians believed, that the moment the double crown was worn, the concept of absolute power was born. A pharaoh was not an ordinary human. He was the living Horus, the son of Ra, the bridge between heaven and earth. When he died, he became Osiris, ruler of the underworld. Every pharaoh after him was believed to be the same divine being reborn. The people believed their survival depended on the pharaoh's ability to maintain ma'at, truth, justice, and cosmic order. If the pharaoh failed, the Nile would not rise, the sun would not return, and the world would fall back into primordial chaos. That is why millions labored for decades, moving stones weighing tens of tons. Not because of the whip, but because they believed it was a sacred duty to keep the universe alive. And from that belief rose monuments that still defy time, even today. 2690 before Christ. The Old Kingdom of Egypt stands at its peak. Pharaonic power is absolute. The provinces run like a colossal machine. Taxes flow smoothly. Gold from Nubia, copper from Sinai, cedar from Lebanon. The population swells, reaching nearly 2 million souls. And in the middle of this golden age, one mind rises above the rest. Imhotep. Not a pharaoh, not a noble, just the chancellor of Pharaoh Djoser, a physician, an architect, and the high priest of the sun. A name carved in stone as the first true genius in recorded human history. Djoser gives Imhotep an impossible command. Build a tomb that time cannot erode, that thieves cannot break, that the Nile cannot drown. Imhotep begins with the old form, the flat stone mastaba, but he is not satisfied. He stacks a smaller mastaba on top of a larger one, then another and another. 6 levels, 62 meters tall. The Step Pyramid of Saqqara, the tallest stone monument on Earth at its birth, comes into existence. According to archaeological findings, the Step Pyramid of Djoser was completed around 2650 BCE. Imhotep's name is carved at the base of Djoser's statue, discovered by Flinders Petrie in 1926, published in the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology, 1933. And from this single spark, Egypt begins to chase the impossible. Djoser dies. 3 pharaohs after him continue the experiment. Sneferu, father of Khufu, builds 3 pyramids in one reign. His first at Medum, still shaped like a stepped tower, collapses when the angle grows too steep. His second at Dashur, the bent pyramid, changes its angle halfway because engineers fear it will fall again. And his third, the red pyramid, finally succeeds, becoming the first true smooth-sided pyramid in history. Then comes Khufu, son of Sneferu, a pharaoh who makes the word great feel small. 2580 BCE, Khufu orders a monument that will make his father's pyramids look like children's toys. 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, a total weight of 6.5 million tons, an original height of 146.6 meters, block-to-block precision of ½ millimeter, smoother than the tiles in our modern homes. As recorded by modern archaeology, the 2.3 million block count and precision measurements were conducted by Mark Lehner's team, the Giza Plateau Mapping Project, 1984 to 1995, published in Aragram and in the Complete Pyramids, Thams and Hudson, 1997. And, contrary to popular myth, these were not built by slaves. Graffiti inside sealed chambers reveal work teams proudly calling themselves Khufu's friends, the strong ones of Khufu, Khufu's drunkards. They were proud. They were fed bread, beer, and beef every day, proven by papyrus records at the Wadi al-Jarf harbor. But behind this greatness, conflict stirs. To build one pyramid for Khufu requires 20 years and tens of thousands of workers. Khafre and Menkaure can still continue the legacy. But after 400 years of the Old Kingdom, something begins to fracture. Provincial governors, the nomarchs, grow wealthier, more powerful, more independent. The climate shifts once more. The Nile's flood becomes unpredictable. Decades of drought follow. Harvests fail. People starve. And Pharaoh Pepi II, who rules for 94 years, the longest reign in human history, finally dies. There is no strong successor. Authority collapses, and no great pyramid is ever built again. Egypt enters what its own people would later call The First Dark Age. Pepi II was dead. The pharaoh who had taken the throne at the age of 6 and ruled for 94 years, the longest reign in human history, was finally gone. There was no strong successor. Power shattered like glass. Egypt fractured into dozens of small kingdoms. The provincial governors, the nomarchs, who had quietly accumulated wealth and influence for generations, finally broke away. Memphis, the old capital, lost control of the nation. The Nile's flood cycles began to fail. Some years the waters rose too high. Other years there was almost no flood at all. Harvests collapsed one after another. Famine swept the land. Cities were abandoned. New pyramids stopped being built forever. The first intermediate period, 2181 to 2055 BCE, and the major droughts are documented through sediment data from Lake Fayum and the Ipuwer Papyrus, Leiden Papyrus I-344. This was the era Egyptians themselves later called the First Dark Age. The ancient historian Manetho wrote, 70 pharaohs ruled in 70 days. An exaggeration, but a perfect picture of how fast power changed hands. In the north, Heracleopolis claimed the throne. In the south, Thebes rose as a rival. Between them, civil war erupted. The kings of Heracleopolis were infamous for their brutality. One of them, Octoi III, was said to have been eaten by a crocodile. Perhaps propaganda, but a sign of how hated they were. Meanwhile, in the south, Thebes was rising. One city after another fell under its control. Nomarchs aligned themselves with whichever side seemed stronger. And in 2055 BCE, one man changed everything. Mentuhotep II, the first pharaoh of the 11th dynasty. On the walls of his temple at Deir el-Bahari, he is depicted striking down his enemies with a mace, just like Narmer 1,000 years earlier. He crushed Heracleopolis. He reunited Upper and Lower Egypt. He moved the capital to Thebes. And with that, the Middle Kingdom was born, Egypt's second golden age. Mentuhotep II's reconquest is carved in the temple of Deir el-Bahari, discovered in 1900 by Howard Carter, years before the tomb of Tutankhamun. See Journal of Egyptian Archaeology, Volume 4, 1917. But what made the Middle Kingdom different was one thing. They had learned from the failures of the Old Kingdom. Nomarchs who had grown too powerful were removed, replaced by officials directly appointed by the palace. The military was strengthened. Massive fortresses were built in Nubia, reaching all the way to the Second Cataract. Gold and copper mines were exploited intensely. The Fayum Oasis was transformed into a massive agricultural reservoir through advanced irrigation. Literature flourished. The tale of Sinuhe, the shipwrecked sailor, stories still read today. Most importantly, pharaohs began to be depicted not as untouchable gods, but as real human rulers. Statues of Senusert III and Amenemhat III show wrinkled faces, hollow eyes, stern expressions. They wanted to appear as burdened leaders, not distant deities. But this new strength carried the seeds of a new disaster. As the pharaohs relied more and more on foreigners, especially Asiatic mercenaries, something stirred on the northeastern frontier. A people known as the Hyksos, foreign rulers, began slipping into Egypt. They brought technologies Egypt had never seen: horses, chariots, composite bows, curved swords. And when the last pharaoh of the Middle Kingdom died without a clear heir, the gates of the north were left wide open. What happens when the civilization that built the pyramids comes face to face with weapons that make those pyramids useless? 1650 BC. Egypt was drifting into sleep. The Middle Kingdom stood at its peak, but hollow inside. The last king of the 12th dynasty died, leaving no clear male heir. The throne slipped into the hands of children and royal wives. The army weakened. The eastern border barely defended. And from the Sinai desert came a people Egypt once mocked as filthy shepherds, the Hyksos. Their name meant Heka Hasut, rulers of foreign lands. They were few, just a cluster of migrant families, but they carried 3 weapons that rewrote the science of war: horses, war chariots, and the composite bow, powerful enough to pierce copper armor from 200 meters. Within 10 years, the Nile Delta collapsed. Avaris in the northeast became their new capital. Native Egyptian kings were forced to pay tribute. Those who refused disappeared. For the first time in 1500 years, a foreigner sat on the throne of the Great House. Hyksos kings wore the double crown, but their names were Semitic: Kian, Apepi, Kamudi. Archaeological records describe this era clearly. Tel el-Daba, ancient Avaris, has been excavated since 1966 by Manfred Bitok. Hyksos chariot remains and composite bows were uncovered in 2010-2011. Scarab seals of Apepi and Kian were found from Carthage to Baghdad. Egypt was humiliated for nearly a century. Native pharaohs ruled only from Thebes. They were vassals. Hyksos statues replaced Egyptian gods on conquered temples. But in the shadows of Thebes, something stirred. A small noble family, the House of Ahamos, whispered one promise to their children every night: "One day, we will drive the foreigners out and restore Egypt." 1550 BC. Seqenenre Tao, ruler of Thebes, received an insult from the Hyksos king Apepi. "Your hippos in Thebes disturb my sleep in Avaris, 700 kilometers away. Kill them, or I will come myself." Seqenenre exploded in fury. He attacked first. His mummy, discovered in 1881, still carries the truth: a skull split by a Hyksos axe, a shattered jaw, and a puncture wound from a composite bow. He died in battle. His son, Kamos, pushed the war forward. He reached the outskirts of Avaris, but the Hyksos spill held strong. Then came the turning point. Kamos's younger brother, a teenage prince named Ahamos I, rose to the throne. And he did what no pharaoh before him dared to do. He built a massive navy on the Nile. He trained chariot units, mastering Hyksos technology. And he besieged Avaris by land and river for 3 relentless years. 1530 BC, Avaris fell. The last Hyksos king fled toward Syria. Ahamos chased him to Sharuhen in Palestine and burned the city to the ground. Ancient records confirm this victory. The Amos Stela from Karnak describes the sieges of Avaris and Sharuhen line by line. Archaeology reveals burned Hyksos fortification layers at Tel el-Daba. From that moment, Egypt transformed. Ahamos I founded the 18th dynasty. He opened the era of the New Kingdom, Egypt's first great empire. The south expanded to the Fourth Cataract. The north reached the Euphrates. Gold poured into Egypt like water. Pharaohs were no longer just divine kings, they became conquerors of the world. But this empire would give rise to Egypt's most legendary and most dangerous rulers. A queen who ruled as a man, a child whose tomb became eternal, and a pharaoh who tried to erase every god but one, nearly destroying Egypt a second time. The New Kingdom began with blood and gold. Amos I had driven out the Hyksos, but one woman would take Egypt to a height even Khufu never imagined. Hatshepsut, 1479 BC. Her husband and half-brother, Thutmose II, died young. The crown prince, Thutmose III, was still a child. Hatshepsut, long known only as the Great Royal Wife, made a decision no woman had taken in 1,500 years of Egyptian history. She proclaimed herself pharaoh, not queen, not regent, but a true king. On the reliefs of Deir el-Bahari, she appears with a ceremonial beard, a male chest, and the double crown of unified Egypt. She ruled for 22 years, legally and divinely, as a man. According to archaeological documentation, the proclamation reliefs of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari, along with statues showing her ceremonial beard, were uncovered between 1903 and 1908, now preserved in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Cairo Museum. Under Hatshepsut, Egypt became the largest trading empire on earth. Her expedition to the land of Punt returned with gold, incense, ivory, even live myrrh trees planted in the courtyard of her temple. Her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari remains one of the most beautiful structures ever built by human hands. But when she died in 1458 BC, something terrifying began. Thutmose III, the child who had waited 22 years for his turn, ascended the throne and ordered Hatshepsut's name erased from every wall, every statue, every stone. Her face was chiseled away, her cartouche destroyed, as if she had never lived. Historical field reports confirm this. Systematic erasure of Hatshepsut's name was identified at Karnak, Luxor, and Deir el-Bahari by archaeologists in the 1920s to 1950s, published in the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology, Volume 47, 1961. Thutmose III then became Egypt's greatest military pharaoh. 17 campaigns in 20 years. He crossed the Euphrates, defeated the kingdom of Mitanni, and raised victory stelae on the same riverbank where Alexander the Great would stand 1,200 years later. Egypt reached its greatest territorial extent. Then came the pharaoh who would nearly destroy it all. Amenhotep IV, 1353 BC. He took the throne and within 5 years committed an act no ruler before or after him ever dared. He abolished every Egyptian god except one, Aten, the solar disk. He changed his name to Akhenaten. He abandoned Thebes, built a new city in the desert, Akhetaten, modern Amarna. He banned statues of the old gods. He closed every temple except the temple of Aten. The priests of Amun, once the most powerful force in Egypt after the pharaoh, lost everything. Archaeological and textual evidence state, the Amarna letters and boundary stelae of Akhetaten were discovered in 1887 and 1891. Destruction layers of Amun temples in Karnak from Akhenaten's reforms remain visible today. Egypt fell into chaos, its borders abandoned. Allies in Syria begged for help. Amarna tablets filled with desperate messages. Send troops or we are lost. Akhenaten refused. He was busy building a utopian city for a single god. When he died in 1336 BC, his queen, Nefertiti, vanished from history. Then a 9-year-old boy appeared, Tutankhamun. The priests of Amun seized control. They forced the child king to restore the old gods. They erased Akhenaten's name from the king lists. They destroyed the city of Amarna. And Tutankhamun died at 19, perhaps murdered. His tomb, discovered in 1922, is the only pharaoh's tomb almost untouched by thieves. Gold, chariots, shrines, even 2 unborn daughters sealed in tiny coffins, all intact. Not because of a curse, but because his tomb was small, hidden, and deliberately forgotten. Scientific reports explain. The tomb of Tutankhamun was excavated by Howard Carter from 1922 to 1932. Two fetal remains found inside were confirmed by a 2010 DNA study as children of Akhenaten, published in JAMA.
With Tutankhamun's death in 1323 BC, the 18th dynasty ended. Egypt entered the age of Ramesses the Great and, eventually, the long, unstoppable decline. From the height of world domination to the forgotten tomb of a murdered child, what force finally erased a 3,000-year civilization from the face of the earth? 1070 BC. Ramesses XI, the last pharaoh of the 20th dynasty, died. No more gold flowed from Nubia. No chariot armies returned from Syria. The great temples of Karnak and Luxor still stood, towering, immovable. But the priests of Amun now held more power than the pharaoh himself. Egypt fractured once more, this time forever. Upper Egypt ruled by the priests of Amun in Thebes. Lower Egypt ruled by shifting dynasties of Libyan and Kushite kings. The Great Pyramids were already ancient memories, 1,500 years old. The tombs of the pharaohs in the Valley of the Kings had been stripped bare, robbed again and again, even by priests desperate to pay soldiers' wages. Royal mummies were moved repeatedly, hidden, relocated, concealed, until finally they were buried in massive secret caches, one at Deir el-Bahari, another in the tomb of Amenhotep II, hidden from thieves, hidden from time. Historical records state, the Deir el-Bahari cache, containing more than 40 royal mummies, was uncovered in 1881. The second cache, KV-35, was found in 1898. Official reports were filed by Emile Bruch and Victor Lorette and preserved in the Cairo Museum archives. 671 BC, Assyria invaded. For the first time in 3,000 years, foreign soldiers marched into Memphis and Thebes with almost no resistance. 525 BC, Cambyses of Persia entered Egypt without a great battle. He defaced the Sphinx, breaking its nose, as a message that the gods of Egypt held no power over him. 332 BC, Alexander the Great arrived. The Egyptians welcomed him not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. He was crowned pharaoh at the Siwa oasis and founded a new city, Alexandria. Then, in 30 BC, Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh, died. Whether by snakebite or poison, history still argues. With her death, the double crown, first worn by Narmer 3,080 years earlier, fell from human hands forever. Egypt became a Roman province, Aegyptus. Hieroglyphs faded within 4 centuries. The last temples were shut by Emperor Theodosius in 391 CE. Archaeological and textual sources note, the Rosetta Stone, 196 BC, discovered in 1799, provided the final key to unlocking hieroglyphs. The decree of Theodosius I, ordering the closure of pagan temples in 391 CE, is recorded in the Codex Theodosianus 16.10.10. 3,000 years of civilization, builders of pyramids, masters of embalming, mathematicians who wrote formulas more than a millennium before Europe understood the number 0, vanished from human memory for more than 1,000 years. Only stone and sand remained, silent, watching. But the true ending was not Cleopatra's death. The real ending came when the last person who could read hieroglyphs died in the 4th century CE. After that, no one knew the names carved into the walls. No one understood the stories written in the tombs. Egypt, the mighty empire of gods and kings, became a lost chapter. 3,000 years.
longer than almost every major civilization we know today. And yet, it vanished completely. So what lessons can we actually take from this oldest chapter of all? First, civilizations do not die simply because of natural disasters or war. Egypt survived centuries of drought, the Hyksos invasion, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. What truly killed them was forgetting to rewrite their own story. When hieroglyphs were forgotten in the 4th century CE, Egypt lost its voice. They became a lost chapter for 1,400 years until the Rosetta Stone was found in 1799. A harsh lesson. When a nation can no longer read its own history, it will be rewritten by someone else. Second, technology and monuments are not guarantees of immortality. The pyramids of Giza still stand, but the names of the pharaohs who built them? Almost no one remembers. Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure. 3 names out of 330 pharaohs. The rest? Gone. Power concentrated in one person or one family always ends the same way. When that person dies, the system dies with them. Third, an obsession with death can preserve life but also consume it. They spent centuries of resources on tombs and mummies because they believed it maintained ma'at, cosmic balance. And in a way, it worked. Their bodies still exist today. But at the same time, they ignored military and political innovation. And that's what cost them against the Hyksos, the Assyrians, the Persians, and finally the Romans. Fourth, great civilizations always fall from the inside before they fall from the outside. The Hyksos walked in because the borders were abandoned. Persia conquered Egypt because the pharaoh had become a puppet of the priesthood. Rome claimed it because the people no longer cared who sat on the throne. Every foreign conqueror simply harvested the fruit that had already rotted from within. And finally, the darkest question of all. Are we repeating the same pattern? We build skyscrapers taller than pyramids. We preserve our data in clouds that can disappear in a single EMP. We worship leaders like gods on social media. And we struggle more and more to read the handwriting of the generation before us. Egypt teaches one truth with brutal clarity. No civilization is too great to fall. The only difference is how long we can delay the end of our story. If this video made you see the pyramids in a completely different way, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because every chapter we unlock takes you deeper into the shadows of forgotten history.
Dust settles where memories sleep. A photo fading in the grayest we arise. They used to shine like dawn. Now the light's gone. The light's gone. Way back then, can we ever be them again? Faded faces on stone is cracked, the glass is thin, like the walls we built to hold it